a man of evangelical zeal. Racehorse saved his best for last. Everything, every bit and piece of the state's case is predicated on the testimony of Priscilla Lee Davis, who is not worthy. Race could hardly find the words to describe Priscilla, but the ones that came to mind were the Queen Bee, the Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde, the other worlder, the lady in the la-di-da pinafore, who rubbed elbows with socialites and hobnobbed with known criminals. It was difficult to keep from smiling when Haynes told the jury in a soft, wondering voice, "I didn't understand Priscilla Lee Davis until Dr. Miller explained her." Pounding his fist on the railing of the jury box, Haynes said, "Dr. Jekyll became Mrs. Hyde, using that big house to bring in those people, those scallywags and thugs, scuddies, rogues, brigands, Sandy Myers, Larry Myers, till he went to prison. All those people that Priscilla Lee Davis in her other life associated with. Don't you wonder? Why would a grown woman permit her own daughter to associate with those people? Because she was in that other world." Yes, Haynes came hard with his second worlder theory, but he also had timed it just right. There wasn't time for the state to rebut it with its own expert. All the second worlder theory really did was to grind Priscilla a little deeper into the dirt, or so Shannon believed. No, it was too late for second guessing. The prosecution would stand by its case. Regardless of the lies, Shannon felt that he had two things going for him. First, there was a great deal of physical evidence to support the stories of the three witnesses. They were solidly in line with the physical evidence. Then there were the statements made by Priscilla and Bev Bass in those crazy moments after the shootings. Excited utterances, Shannon called them. It didn't seem reasonable to Shannon that Priscilla and Bev Bass had a motive, much less the time to construct elaborate lies. As Shannon took the floor, his last chance to address the jury before deliberations, the courtroom was deathly silent. Then glancing at his famous adversary at the defense table, Richard Haynes, Shannon reminded the jury that a good defense lawyer is a master of illusion. Shannon told the jury, quote, 30% of this lawsuit has been devoted to trying a divorce. Another 50% has been Priscilla's association with those scuddies that Mr. Haynes told you about. Shannon turned and looked straight at Cullen Davis. What you've seen in this court, he said, is an attempt to run over everyone that gets in this man's way. Just like on August 2nd. People were in his way and he fixed their twats. That's exactly what he did. The whole defense has been nothing but ABC. Anybody but Cullen. Priscilla and Bev Bass were terrified and running in the opposite direction, he repeated. And yet they told the same story. Cullen did it. When people are excited and shook up, Shannon told the jury, they tell the truth. That's why it's admissible in evidence. Later, after a long pause, Shannon said, power, greed. He was going to have it his way. And that's what he did that night. The judge, the jury, the executioner. Shannon thanked the jury for its time and patience and took his seat. He had given a magnificent performance, and he knew it. So did everyone in the courtroom, including Racehorse and the defense lawyers. Perhaps because he had the last word, Shannon had made a profound impact on the jury. Mike Gibson admitted later, when we got back to our apartment that night, we were all a little down. Dee Miller, the Amarillo member of the defense team, put it more bluntly, quote, Joe Shannon scared the hell out of me. The next morning, they began deliberations at 9:20 a.m. It was Thursday, November 17, 1977. The jury had been sequestered longer than any other jury in Texas history. Around 1 o'clock that afternoon, Dowling summoned all the attorneys to the bench and said in a somber tone, quote, "I have a note from the jury. They want to visit the scene of the crime. Fulfilling this request would be, to say the least, a staggering logistical problem." Haynes nearly bit the stem off his favorite pipe. "Aw, you guys, I'm only kidding," the judge smiled after a proper pause. Then he read them the true contents of the message. It said, "We want 8 Cokes and 4 Dr. Peppers." By 2:30 in the afternoon that very same day, the first day, the judge exited his chambers and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the jury has reached a verdict." The judge asked the defendant to rise. Cullen had expressed, up until this point, confidence that he'd be acquitted, but now he had the color of a standing corpse. Regarding the charges for capital murder and murder, Dowling said, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Thomas Cullen Davis, not guilty." Oh, the courtroom erupted in applause and cries of victory. For the next several minutes, almost everyone was hugging and kissing. Cullen embraced Attorney Sumner and Haynes at the same time. He told each of the lawyers, quote, "Thank you very much." Karen Master was crying, and Haynes was trying to keep from crying. Regarding the side that lost, the prosecution, it was especially painful and difficult. They knew they were fighting for justice. They knew Cullen was guilty. They knew the jury was distracted by sideshows, smoke screens, false narratives, speculations, what ifs. Joe Shannon, 35 pounds lighter than when he arrived at Amarillo, stood to one side, counting the change in his pants pocket. When someone asked him what he was thinking, Shannon permitted himself a thin smile and replied, quote, "I was thinking that I had exactly 18 cents in my pocket. Life's a funny old duck, ain't it?" Months later, when the dust of Amarillo had settled, Shannon said, "I never thought I would say this, but it seems we do have 2 systems of justice in this country, one for the rich and one for the poor." Regarding the jury instructions, every juror who was interviewed stressed the importance of 2 phrases: moral certainty and reasonable doubt. "I'm not sure we all thought he was innocent," said juror Carl Pra, the Braniff agent, "but there was room for reasonable doubt, and that's what we were told to find." The source of their doubt was Priscilla Davis. "I didn't believe her," Pra said. Juror James Watkins agreed. "Some of the things she said I didn't believe. I think maybe she didn't lie to us, but she didn't tell us enough of the truth." "I don't think Priscilla's as bad as old Racehorse made her out to be," said Walter Jones. "But I think most of the jury felt she had lied to them about a number of things, so they couldn't take her word about anything. The rumor that circulated the night before turned out to be true. In the first ballot, 2 jurors voted to convict, Kennedy and Jones. 10 voted to acquit. Jones says he voted guilty at first because the accounts of Priscilla and Bev Bass were independent and almost identical. When it was 10-2 against him, Jones admitted he felt overwhelmed. Quote, "When 10 people jump up and say not guilty, you wonder if there was something you didn't see. If it had been closer, we might still be there." The 2 who voted guilty didn't put stock in the defense's contention that Stan Farr was the killer's real target. No, their reasonable doubt was not predicated on their belief that Horace Copeland or someone else committed the crimes. They changed their votes based on discrepancies in times and on the entrance and exit of the large expensive car or cars that 2 witnesses saw at the mansion about the time of the murders. None of the jurors believed Duane Polk's strange tale, and most of them had grave doubts about the credibility of Tommy Jordan and Karen Master. All of the jurors looked on Bubba Gavril as an innocent victim who didn't know who shot him, and all of them seemed to believe Bev Bass, and yet, by some convoluted logic, they refused to accept Bass's identification of Cullen Davis because it matched Priscilla's story. A reporter for the Star-Telegraph discovered a few days later that it was juror Carl Pra who had the most influence on their deliberations. Pra focused on something Racehorse Haynes said, that eyewitnesses can be badly mistaken without really lying. And Pra formulated his own theory to explain how two women running in opposite directions at the same time could compare stories. Pra called it the coincidental conspiracy. The idea was Priscilla could hear loud noises in the dead of night no matter how far away she ran from the mansion. If Priscilla could hear the screams of Bev Bass, then she could also hear the words she uttered. Bev shouted, "Cullen, please don't shoot me, it's Bev," 8 or 9 times. Miss Bass said she had repeated that line to the killer, who she thought was the man she had come to know well over the past 5 years. The more Mr. Pra thought about it, the more certain he became. Bev Bass's cries sparked the coincidental conspiracy. That's where Priscilla could have gotten Cullen's name, even if she knew it was somebody else who did it, Pra suggested. Why would Priscilla conceal the identity of the person who had just murdered her daughter and her lover? Pra had that figured out too. At that time, Priscilla did not know her daughter was dead. Pra told the reporter when she fled, it was convenient to blame Cullen so she could be safe from the real killer if the shootings were drug-related. Once she found out Andrea was dead, it was too late to backtrack. When defense attorney Steve Summer heard Pra's theory, he said, "God, that's so bizarre. We wouldn't have dared try it on a jury." Minutes after the reading of the verdict, some of the jurors went to the bar called the Surf Room, where Karen Masters' father was buying drinks. At his invitation, 4 of the jurors were chauffeured across town to Rhett Butler's bar, where Cullen's victory party was beginning. At first, the party was limited to Cullen's people and the attorneys, but gradually 5 jurors, 3 bailiffs, a few groupies, a dozen reporters, and even the judge himself would join the party. The judge later got heat for his attendance at the party, but later was given a clean bill of health by the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. For the duration of the trial, the judge had spent almost all of his evenings at Rhett Butler's bar. The demands of the trial had been especially hard on him. Among other things, his girlfriend broke off their relationship. And so on this particular night, Dowland did what he did every night, went straight to Rhett Butler's and started ordering scotch and celery sticks. He didn't join the party joined him. Later on, the judge said, "I guess what I should have done is got up and left after Cullen and his people came in, but damn it, I didn't have anywhere to go." As the party grew, it started to look like the dressing room of a Super Bowl champion. Flash bulbs popped, people hugged and kissed. They laughed, they cried, they flashed victory signs. And normally intelligent reporters ran around like teenagers at Elvis's house. Attorney D. Miller, who sat on the bench the whole game, drank a toast to the largest fee of his career. And Racehorse, whose own attorney's fee was rumored to be astronomical, proposed a toast to all the money spent on photographs of investigators taking photographs of investigators. The jurors Watkins, Geisler, and Betty Fox Blair seemed to enjoy the adoration and talked freely with reporters. One drunk reporter kept patting the jurors on the ass and telling them, "You guys are the true heroes in all this," and the jurors appeared to believe it. Actually, convicting a man so rich and powerful seemed unthinkable. Most of the jurors would have agreed that rich men don't kill their wives. Miss Blair said it seems like if someone that rich wanted it done, he'd hire somebody. Racehorse was glowing like a forest fire. He'd already had a few drinks and wasn't in a mood to stop because he abstained for so long during the trial. Haynes was the Vince Lombardi of trial lawyers. He might have even loved winning more than he hated losing. Considering the publicity for this case and the trial's length and his fee, This would be his biggest victory to date. Now it was all over. Race was even persuaded to sing a couple of verses of his favorite Willie Nelson song. Then Race and Cullen moved into the glare of the TV lights and did the kind of slap palms, bump asses number you would expect to see on the Flip Wilson show or from two football players who just combined for a touchdown. A local TV station was doing their nightly news live from Rhett Butler's bar. They wondered if Racehorse would mind making a statement. Despite being half drunk, he was not the type to shy away from a camera or an audience and agreed to make a statement. He went downstairs and made one that he probably regretted the next day because of how severe it was. Still advancing the trial plan of demonizing Priscilla Davis, he laid into her. She is the dregs, he said. She's probably shooting up right now. She is the most shameless, brazen hussy in all humanity. She's a charlatan, a harlot, and a liar. She's a snake, unworthy of belief under oath. She's a dope fiend and a habitué of dope. She's the most sordid human being in the United States, in fact, the world. Someone ought to put up a barbed wire fence around her and keep her there. Priscilla Davis herself, after hearing the verdict, was reportedly in a state of shock and in no condition to make statements to the press. Priscilla's supporter, Linda Arnold, said, "I hope all the money it took to buy all the lies gives those people a lot of joy. I hope all the people who lied can live with it." Later, Priscilla talked to two reporters who called from Amarillo. Priscilla said, I know the truth. I know he did it. But he can't hurt me anymore. Now I'll have to answer to God. That's someone he can't buy. It looks like everyone won today except me. Cullen has his freedom. Racehorse has his $1 million. You guys have your stories, your books, your movies. The cost has been tremendous. Just remember one thing. It cost me a child I love very much. That's the part that nobody wants to talk about.